Welcome to Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish along with George Kurtz. We're getting you ready for the big weekend in fantasy football. We'll also recap Thursday Night Football, maybe take a sneak peek toward Thanksgiving Day as well. George, great to have you back here with me on the show as we dive right in. Plenty of information to get to. I think the biggest story of the week is trying to field a lineup. The Jaguars, the Bills, the Bengals, the Saints, the Jets. I mean, everybody's off this week. I mean, you're going to be playing players you haven't played all season.
It's a struggle, right? So you play in multiple leagues, you realize some leagues you might get lucky in, some leagues you're getting crushed in, absolutely crushed. And it's happening to all of us. Oh, I can't believe it's happening to me. No, it's happening to all of us. We all have problems throughout here. And Craig, this is not the last time. All right. Next week, yeah, sure. It's Thanksgiving week. Everybody plays here. But week 14, we have 6 more teams that are out. All right, so we're going to have to go through this again. And depending on how your league is set up, week 14 could be the final week of your regular season, determining who gets in and who gets out, or it could be week 1 of the playoffs. So you think you're complaining now, wait until 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, it's going to be crazy in 2 weeks. And again, people are going to need that to get in the fantasy football playoffs. That's just part of our headlines here on the show today. Bryce Young, it was announced earlier in the week he's going to get to start again as the Carolina Panthers quarterback. He goes up against the Chiefs this week. The big story in New York, which we're going to expand upon here, is Daniel Jones not just benched, but he ends up getting released. Tommy DeVito is going to start. Gabe Davis, underperforming, underachieving, out for the season yet again. All right, so let's get into this Giants situation. Thanksgiving Day, George's favorite football day of the season. I would probably say it's mine too. I would say that. We're all going to be cuddled up to the couch. We're going to be full from food, and we're going to be watching Tommy DeVito battle it out with Cooper Rush. But maybe the bigger story that came out of this, George, was a press conference late in the week with Daniel Jones saying goodbye to everybody, and people making fun of Daniel Jones, saying, yes, he was sincere, but why is he saying goodbye? Then we found out on Friday that he's being released completely. George, he's had a couple of good fantasy games, probably more than a couple, maybe a half a dozen. But in the end, the Giants make some very perplexing decisions along with letting go of Jones. Drew Lock doesn't even get the opportunity. I picked him up in a league last week just to get ahead of things. We talked about that. It was a buffoon move. The guy's not even playing this week. Let's break it down. The Giants seem to be headed toward, like the Jets, a rebuild situation.
Yeah, it's like I said, I think it's going to be a very wild offseason here in New York because, listen, the Jets, we know they're starting anew, right? Douglas is gone. You already fired the coach. I have a hard time seeing Aaron Rodgers coming back for that team. And the Giants, okay, you still have the GM and the coach, but you got rid of the quarterback. And I got to think, unless things change over the next 6-7 games here, that Dable and Shen are gone as well, right? So both teams can be looking for really starting from scratch here. The Giants are going to have, I think right now, Craig, if I remember correctly, they are the number 1 pick right now. That could obviously change by the end of the season here, but they're going to have a top 5 pick, right? So who might they take in the draft? Could it be Shedeur Sanders? That would be pretty wild. Not so sure if I see that. You know, Deion says, his father, the coach, that he's going to direct him where to go or be able to control where he goes. I'm not so sure the Giants are going to want to deal with that situation, so we'll see if that's there. But either way, the Giants taking a quarterback next year. As for chicken cutlets there, Tommy DeVito, I mean, Craig, he did win a couple of games last season. We forget that he played last year. He won 3 games. So maybe that's why he's starting over Drew Lock. Maybe they just want to find out, do we at least have a backup quarterback on Tommy DeVito? I mean, there are legitimate reasons why they could have gone with Tommy. I get it that Drew Lock got screwed over, and he's not happy. He's putting on a happy face, but he got screwed over because he was hoping to do sort of a Baker Mayfield. Let me play for 6 games, see if I can show other teams that I deserve a second chance. And he got screwed over. I know the joke is, well, you have a number 2 quarterback coming into the season. You're a number 2 quarterback now. What are you complaining about? So it's pretty wild in New York here. We'll see how it works out. Oh, by the way, yesterday when Jones got released, I mean, social media is going wild that Daniel Jones could end up with the Cowboys and play against the Giants on Thanksgiving. It's not going to happen, boys and girls. The earliest the Cowboys could sign him is Monday. There'd be no practice time. He wouldn't know the offense before the game on next Thursday. So that's not happening here.
No, and Daniel Jones probably in his best interest, and we can dive into this now, George, would be to just sit out, honestly, the rest of the season, because he's not going to do himself any favors going to the Raiders or going, if Lawrence is out for the season, we really don't know, they're on the bye, going to a team where he would have a chance to play. I think that's important going into next year. But look, George, we've talked about the state of quarterbacking in the NFL. there are some comparisons that are being made right now to Geno Smith, who finally found himself in Seattle a couple of years ago and completely turned his career around. Remember, Geno Smith also got a chance to play for the Giants too along the way. I would ask you, George, do you think that there's a possibility of that? If you have Jones in a dynasty league, is there a chance, like Baker Mayfield, like Geno Smith, that he gets a chance to start? Or on the flip side, is he Mitchell Trubisky, Gardner Minshew? I mean, it could go a number of different ways, I think. But I think you and I would probably both agree we haven't seen the last of him starting in the NFL.
Oh, I completely agree. I don't think he'll get a starting quarterback job next year. I think he'll have to be a backup for somebody, pick whatever team. And then when something happens and he gets a chance to start, well, once again, there's his shot to prove that he can do it again. And maybe he goes to a lesser team at some point and gets a chance to start. Baker Mayfield is a perfect example here, right? Didn't go work out in Cleveland, moved on. Hey, working out great with Tampa Bay. You brought up Geno Smith, didn't work out for several teams, both New York teams. Hey, it's working out in Seattle, or at least it has worked out. So, yeah. I think he'll start again. I think what you said is correct. I don't think he should go to, use the Raiders or Jaguars. No, that's not going to help you any. You're probably going to play terrible again. You're not going to know the offense. There's no chemistry. It wouldn't work out. But I don't think it would be the worst thing for him to sign with a really good team, with a really good coaching staff to learn,
agreed.
Not to play, to learn. All right. So you think of Andy Reid. He's not going to Kansas City, but an Andy Reid staff would be really good there. I think that might be a good situation for him just to sit back, what do you got, month and a half, 2 months, maybe with playoffs here, and just learn from those coaches.
Yeah, I look, we all don't know where he's going to end up, but the lack of 20 starting good quarterbacks in the NFL tells you that Jones is going to get another shot with somebody. And I'm maybe a little bit more optimistic than George. I do think he's going to get a chance to start at some point next season. Meanwhile, maybe it's in Carolina. Bryce Young is back at starting quarterback. The Panthers seemingly have committed to him, George, for the rest of the season to see what he can do. Maybe what they're doing is taking a cue from the Indianapolis Colts, because it appears that Anthony Richardson may have learned a thing or two sitting out for a week or two, whatever it was. I don't know that I'm nearly as optimistic, and a really tough matchup this week against Kansas City to prove that theory correct.
It is, but isn't this what they have to do, Craig? Once again, they're done. All right, put a fork in them. They're not going anywhere. You got to let the kid play. Right? You have to know, because once again, you're going to get a top draft pick as well. Right? You're likely to get a top 5 pick. And you might, if you don't believe in Young, you get him in a year and a half, 2 years, then you might take another quarterback. Right? It's going to be a really tough decision for Carolina to make. So they need to find out. This is nothing against Andy Dalton. I did, I guess, an admirable job while he was in there, but we know he's done. All right? He's not leading you anywhere this year or next. You need to play Bryce Young. If for the very least, Craig, just to find out for sure, to make up your mind, okay, we need a quarterback next year. Oh, you know what? He's improving here. We're going to give it a go. Maybe you'll decide, hey, we are going to go for a quarterback next year, but now he's shown something good on tape that we can trade him for something. Not just a 7th-round pick. You maybe get something a little better than that.
Yeah, I think right now you're probably right, George. They just got to roll this out there, see what it is, see if there's a chance that he can succeed in any way in the offense, and give some sort of glimpse of hope that he can continue, as a starting quarterback, maybe potentially in the National Football League moving forward. All right, George. So what we'll do is we'll take a quick time out here, but I got to ask you before we do, the snow in that Thursday night game, I'm sure we're going to get deeper into it when we break down the next game here. Did we not know that was going to happen going into Thursday night? I had no clue.
We heard rain. All right, we heard rain, which is Cleveland. I did not see that coming at all. That was fantastic. I love snow games. Absolutely, I thought it was fantastic. It was great TV.
Yeah, it was wild, and again, the stats will show that it was wild in the snow too. We'll dive into the Steelers and Browns next.
Chris Cyborg, 39 years of age. Larissa Pacheco, only 30. Cyborg 2 inches taller. Equal measurement on the arm reach for these women. Slightly longer legs for Chris Cyborg. Touch of the gloves, and we are underway in our co-main event. Cauliflower.
No, it might be. Oh! Beautiful.
What a level. Big kick.
How did she take that?
Pacheco just ate it.
Wow.
Measured and controlled in her breathing. Oh, nasty left hand snuck over the top for Cyborg. Pacheco, she will literally and figuratively smell blood in the water.
Oh,
here's the guillotine.
Another beautiful takedown, but she put herself right in harm's way. That is tight.
Good short elbow there.
Very nice.
Oh.
Good overhand right there from Cyborg.
That was a solid right hand.
Needing some punches.
Watch the back of the head, quick. Watch the back of the head.
First deep breath I've seen Larissa take in this fight. Just about 10 seconds ago. Oh, nice takedown.
Rolls through onto an ankle, maybe. 15 seconds, and we're going to see some wildness. Yeah, of course
Yes,
we
we
are.
Both women landed there. They'll swing away to the final bell here.
9 to 46. I'll have it for the winner by unanimous decision. And now the PFL Superfights Women's Featherweight World Champion, Chris Cyborg.
The legend adds to her legacy. Chris Cyborg.
Thursday Night Football caught a lot of people by surprise, not just with the outcome, but with the conditions of the game. The Browns beat the Steelers by a final of 24-19, and flurries were on the schedule, but not like a storm of snow. And George, it was fun to watch. As they say, this football with snow is aesthetically pleasing. I would say that too. But the gameplay itself in the second half was like just very, very difficult. And George Pickens after the game, basically just ran over the Browns with a truck saying, hey, this team is not even good. Like, that's why we lost to them. You think he's right?
I think when you lose to a team, you don't start saying that team sucks. Because what does that make you? You lost to them. All right. So, as I said, I think Pickens was mad. Whatever happened at the end of the game where he's fighting with Newsome there in the back of the end zone, I think he just ticked off here. I think he was also mad about that play. I think it was on the last drive going down the left sideline where he thought it was pass interference, but he didn't catch the ball from Russell Wilson. Actually, I didn't think it was, for what it's worth. At least not what constitutes pass interference nowadays, what they call. And every pass is pass interference, but I didn't think that would deserve to be called there. Listen. If I don't think you have a right to be surprised about this outcome. Mike Tomlin, Thursday nights, on the road, 0-7 career. He doesn't. For whatever reason, team doesn't show up. I thought Tomlin had a rough, and I liked Tomlin's probably my favorite head coach. Dan Campbell's catching up in a big hurry, but he's probably my favorite head coach. He didn't have a good game. That his timeout usage was questionable at best here. Some of his game calls were like, what are you doing here? I don't think Tomlin had a good game. Maybe he was feeling the pressure also of being 0-7 on Thursday nights. So I think it was just bad all around. Russell Wilson completed a lot of passes, but didn't really move the football. They certainly had trouble in the red zone there, settling for field goals once again. The defense came up small when you needed it, right? They came up small when you needed that stop after they took that lead here. I thought it was, Craig, a Thursday night football game. It's sort of what we expect for a Thursday night football game. A little sloppy, not the crux of the football. I thought the snow was great. I loved it. Like I said, I like snow. As long as it's not major affecting anything I might have on the game.
Well, it was.
And I did have the under, by the way. That I can't believe that didn't cash after the first half. But I did have Cleveland as well. I took the points. So I'll take that. I'll end up being a split. Some props hit, some props missed. What are you going to do? I thought it was an interesting game.
All right, so let's dive into the quarterback stats and basically ask ourselves the question, if you were forced in a situation to play these players, did you get what you asked for or did you get what you deserved? I think that's fair. 270 passing yards from Russell Wilson. So he goes over his passing yards prop. He threw one touchdown pass. He had 10 rushing yards. We saw a lot of Justin Fields play in this game where he was sort of a alternate quarterback that they went to, like a slash, so to speak. And then Jameis Winston, was basically a not startable quarterback. He bailed his you-know-what out in the end with that rushing touchdown. He had 219 passing yards. He also threw an interception. I thought that ended the game. I thought that was going to be it once he threw that pick at the end of the game, but that definitely was not the case. Winston, feels a lot better than really what he is, George. Is probably like he's just like a fun guy. Like he's great. His quotes are great. He plays fun. He plays with a lot of energy. He definitely made the Browns look better. I just don't know that in the fantasy playoffs I want to start this guy. 2-quarterback league, I guess, if I have to. And I think the same could be said for Russell Wilson. He's definitely played much better than I thought he would, but these are not 12, 14-team league starters.
Winston is a very, very poor man's Brett Favre. That's what he is. He's throwing the football. Right, that football's getting thrown. All right, we're going to find out where it's going to go here. In a 2-quarterback league, you likely had to start both these guys, right? There's no Josh Allen this week, no Kirk Cousins, no Joe Burrow. I don't know if I'm going to go as far down as Derek Carr. I don't think he was a quarterback one anyway. He was certainly not Aaron Rodgers. So, like I said, you might have had to in a 2-quarterback league. I get it. In a 1-quarterback league, I don't care if those 3 were out. They weren't in my top 15. Right? So you still should have been able to do better. Right. I mean, maybe you put in Russell Wilson. I could sort of understand Russell Wilson. I get it. Okay, like I said, maybe he did squeeze into that top 15. You're playing Cleveland. You know he's going to take his deep shots, which he did. He does every game. He's going to take his shots there. Cleveland's secondary had played pretty poorly of late, but we knew the weather was going to be bad. Not that bad. We did not know a blizzard was coming, but we knew it was going to be bad with the rain, and it could be a slick ball here. So I think you should have been able to avoid it. Wilson, I think, ended up giving you, 15 points, so okay at best. Winston got you, almost nothing there. There's nothing you can do about that. Chubb did nothing on the ground, but he stole the touchdowns there. One thing I want to bring up in this game, Pittsburgh got screwed, by the way, by the refs on that final drive for Cleveland. Why that wasn't intentional grounding, and I read the rules, by the way, that should have been intentional grounding. The refs screwed that up. There is some kind of where a judgment call there if he thought the ball was going to an eligible receiver, but the hit made the ball go someplace different. That was always intentional grounding. There was no receiver within 20 yards of that pass. So Pittsburgh did get screwed there.
All right, so the big performance yesterday, and I think it's fair to say, George, that it's very rare to get a 0 performance from a player in fantasy in the first half of the season and then come on strong in the second half. We may see that with Christian McCaffrey, but a little bit of a different scenario because McCaffrey was like the number 1 overall pick and everyone thought he was going to play. Everyone knew Nick Chubb, George, was going to miss time, but there was a lot of talk like, well, when he comes back, Jerome Ford's still going to be there, not going to get a ton of touches. 59 yards yesterday and 2 touchdowns. I know he's kind of touchdown dependent right now, and I understand that, but I have a feeling he's going to be on some playoff rosters starting in fantasy.
He might be because every running back with a pulse, once again, is startable. That being said, you already said it, Craig. He is extreme touchdown dependent. He doesn't get it, you're not going to be happy. He doesn't get a touchdown. I don't think he reaches double digits. So that's going to be an issue for a lot of fantasy owners. Ford, not really usable, but he does catch the ball out of the backfield, not Chubb. So that's why he's, once again, touchdown dependent. You're not going to get those extra points there. Pittsburgh, by the way, is interesting as well. Warren's starting to steal touches over Najee Harris. You still want Harris, but Warren is now flex worthy. So keep that up here. It's going to drive everybody nuts. We'd rather all it be Harris, but Warren is now flex worthy.
Yeah, George Pickens, not the greatest game. He wasn't happy afterwards. 4 catches, 48 yards. Elements definitely a big factor in the wide receiver position, although Jerry Jeudy somehow came up very big late for the Cleveland Browns, without a doubt. All right, to win the North, George, we've got the Ravens, Steelers, Bengals, and Browns. Probably going to be one of those first 2 teams is what I would guess, but we'll dive more into that when we come back as we take a look at the waiver wire. We take a look at players that you could pick up, potentially even start this week with so many players on the bye. If you need some help, we're here to do it. We'll be right back.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the 2 big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid, Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma will do to you when he goes here on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, time to head on over to the waiver wire. If you have Kirk Cousins this week or, perhaps one of the players on bye, you're going to need to get a replacement, maybe for 1 week, maybe for more. Let's start off, George, with a player 50% or less owned in most fantasy leagues. That is Drake May of the New England Patriots. Pretty impressive numbers when you look at it on the season, considering the guy didn't play at the beginning of the year. 1,236 yards. The number that sticks out, 260 rushing yards in limited time. 10 total touchdowns, 6 interceptions. I thought he was actually okay against the Rams. He was in a tough spot at the end of the game last week. Of course, he threw a pick and the game ended. But, boy, I mean, Bo Nix and Drake May have both impressed me to start. That's for sure.
Bo Nix has been great, right? Absolutely great here. I'm looking at some stats here as far as Miami against quarterback fantasy-wise. Miami against quarterbacks. On the season, they're top 5. So they don't give up fantasy points to quarterbacks, but the last 4 weeks, they're more middle of the pack here. So that might give you some better, better judgment there whether or not to use Drake May. I don't want to use May. All right, I think that's the upside is limited. And even the floor could be pretty low here. Things aren't going well. It is in Miami, so we're not worried about weather this weekend in the Northeast. And I think Miami will score points. So they're going to have to throw the ball more, but we still know New England's going to want to take the air out of the ball. Right, they want to they don't want Miami to have 10 possessions. They want to slow this game down, kill the clock with Stevenson and such like that, not let Hill and Waddle and company get going here. Now you mentioned no Cousins, no Allen, no Burrow here. I mean, no Carr. I don't think I need to say Aaron Rodgers here. And I certainly don't need to say Mac Jones. But those are the quarterbacks that are out this week. I mean, in a one quarterback league, if I'm going as far down as Drake May, I think things just did not work out very well for me at all.
It's possible you're like me. You have Dak Prescott, you have Trevor Lawrence, you're hitting the waiver wire. I mean,
absolutely.
By the way, I'm probably in my dynasty league starting both DeVito and Cooper Rush. This is true. I mean, I have a trade on the table. If I want to make it, I'm probably going to get Jared Goff. But as of right now, I have
What's
those
the trade?
Starting. What's the trade? I trade. I trade a Dak Prescott. And I trade Rashid Shaheed, and Shaheed is like $1. He's like very cheap. And in return, I get Goff and a 3. That's my trade. So Goff for the future, but Goff for this year. I don't have a quarterback, keep in mind. And somehow
I don't know if Goff is that far behind Dak, even starting next year.
If I want to fight this year, George, then I have to do something. I can't go into the playoffs with those two. I
don't mind that deal.
But I don't know.
I don't mind that deal at all.
Do you think Lawrence is going to play?
They shouldn't play him. I mean,
I don't think he's going to play
again. Well, he'll play again. It's not this. I don't think they should play him this year. I don't think they should play him this year. You paid him $1 gazillion. Whether he's worth it or not doesn't matter anymore. That's sunk money. Protect him for next year.
Yeah. So the guy also has.
Well, you know what's going to happen? I'll tell you what's going to happen. Unless Peterson's told not to play him, Peterson's not there next year. What the hell does he care?
Yeah,
right. He's going to play.
He's going to want to win.
He's going to try and win some games.
Yeah,
he's not going to win with Mac.
Yeah, I mean, Geno Smith is on this guy's team too, and that's what I'm asking about. Is if I could have both Goff and Geno Smith, and then I can roll both those in. I've already made the playoffs, and I'm tempted not to do the deal until the deadline, which is next week. Because if something was to happen to Goff this week and I trade for him, I wouldn't have him for the playoffs. So I'm in a pickle there. All right, let's get to some other players. People don't want to hear my trades; they want to hear about players. I'm going to run through them quick. Christian Watson, Adam Thielen. Those are the two wide receivers we're going to talk about here. Watson is obviously very heavily owned, and he's coming off a really good game with Green Bay. Thielen has been almost a zero for the majority of the season. Panthers, I believe he's on the way end of his deal here with Carolina. He signed a multi-year deal with them. He's also been hurt most of the year. I mean, Watson is an absolute pickup and must start, but Thielen, I don't think so.
Agree on both here. I don't know if I'd say a must start for Watson. He's hit or miss. Some weeks he does well, some weeks he doesn't. You have to hope he hits that week. There are a lot of players there within Reed and Wicks and Dobbs. Who's going to be the guy that week. They do play a beat-up San Fran team again this week, especially if Purdy doesn't play. That's a nightmare as well. As for Adam Thielen, the best I can tell you, he's a wait and see. I'm certainly not starting him the first week he comes back. All right, that's not going to happen. He did do very well last year with Bryce Young. At one point, he was a top 10 wide receiver. So you keep that in mind here. I think he is rosterable, but I don't want to start him this week.
All right, Roschon Johnson, 38% owned for the Bears. DeAndre Swift's been banged up. He is like that one guy to hold this week and see if he'll start him. And listen, and I hate to say that I was right about Taysom Hill, George, but I was. Taysom Hill is that guy that's going to have one huge game all season. He had it last week.
Killed people last week, right? I had him in a league or two at some point this year. Not last week, though, so I didn't get those points. So it's just funny how it works. Everybody has Taysom Hill. Everybody has Hill at some point.
Everybody. I drafted him. I had him for 5 weeks. Cut him. I don't know what. We'll be right back.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people.
What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma will do to you when he goes here on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the two big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports today here on Sports Grid. Very thankful here as Thanksgiving is coming that this is not a 10-minute segment on the New York Jets, but unfortunately it is a 10-minute segment on the New York Giants, who have a real perplexing story to tell here because, George, several years ago, they hired Brian Daboll away from Buffalo. It looked like a genius hire. They came out of the gates hot. They were very good in their first year. Daboll, Coach of the Year candidate. Barkley was running the ball. Daniel Jones was playing well. They thought he was the quarterback of the future. And then here we are a few years later. They made the epic mistake of letting go of Saquon Barkley. To me, one of the biggest mistakes they've ever made in franchise history when you think about it. I mean, the guy is having an MVP season in the same division with Philadelphia. So I don't know why anybody had any kind of expectations on them this year. But unfortunately, this looks like, similar to the Jets, a team that's going to have to reevaluate things, maybe head toward a rebuild in the offseason.
Yeah, it's always got to be a complete teardown, I would think, at this point, right? Daniel Jones is gone, was released yesterday, so they're going to need a quarterback. They do have a top 5 pick in the – well, I assume they'll have a top 5 pick in the draft. I guess Tommy DeVito could always lead them to more victories than they actually want here, but they're going to have to redo everything. All right, I think I know Mara, the owner Wellington Mara has said that, or whatever, the Maras have said that Daboll and Shen won't be fired, that they're going to continue. I think it's just trying to keep these guys afloat, that they want them to continue to fight on here. I don't think they want to fire them in season, but I got to think on Black Monday, where so many coaches will get fired, that Daboll and Shen will be shown the door as very quickly, either on that day or shortly thereafter here. Like you said, Greg, I remember thinking as a Cowboy fan when they hired Daboll, they finally got it right. I thought they got it right with Daboll. You know, they would have a good head coach here. It hasn't worked out. The problem for the Giants has been over and over again that offensive line. It's been putrid. We're not just talking this year. This has gone on for years. When when Daniel Jones first got called up, or first got drafted by the Giants, you could see that one thing he didn't do well. He did not see peripherally very well. He was always getting hit from one side or the other and fumbling the football. That's gotten better, but not better, not good enough here. He doesn't see the rush here, holds on to the football, turns it over. He can run the ball, but we also know the injuries are concerned there, right? With all the head injuries, that's affected play as well. So they're going to have to start from scratch, build things up here. And if they do it right, it's going to take 2 to 3 seasons minimum.
Agreed.
And they have to. If they don't hit a quarterback, it doesn't matter. You have to hit on the quarterback, whoever you draft here. If you whiff, whoever you take this year, Shedeur Sanders, whoever it is, if you whiff, then it might take 5 years for you to before you recover from that.
Yeah, and again, that's what a rebuild is, and quarterback will be in play for them, but it's also in play for a lot of other teams, and that's what they're going to be fighting up against. So Tommy DeVito, he gets another shot here, George. I'm surprised, but I guess they didn't want to pay Drew Lock, but they paid him already. What a backwards move that was. They owe $5 million, but don't want to pay incentives. I mean, so bizarre. Tommy DeVito threw 9 touchdown passes last year. He was really good. I mean, he helped the Giants out until there was some film on him, and then he wasn't as good anymore. And that's what's going to happen. But George, for me, if I am Tommy DeVito, and I know this is my last shot, he has, to me, maybe the premier wide receiver in the entire National Football League in terms of youth to go to. And Malik Neighbors, this guy, to me, is an absolute superstar. 94 targets, 61 receptions, 607 yards, 3 touchdowns. Remember, he missed some time with a concussion. This is a player to build around for the future. The Cardinals took Marvin Harrison Jr. very early in the draft, too. Neighbors, to me, if I am Tommy Cutlets, George, like, it is just throw this guy the ball as often as I can, give him 12, 13 targets a game. I know it sounds crazy, but that's what's going to get me my next job, I think, throwing to him.
Oh, I would agree. You said Tommy Cutlets. He was okay last year. He made mistakes. He's not perfect, but for a guy who just came in out of nowhere, nothing was expected of him. He did okay here. And you look at their schedule here. All right, they play Tampa, no secondary. Dallas, forget about it. New Orleans, no secondary. Baltimore, no secondary. Atlanta's defense looks like they have just given up. Indianapolis is nothing special before you get to Philadelphia the last week of the season in a game that might not mean anything. I think DeVito's going to do some damage. All right, I think he's going to do some damage. And what I mean is, I think he's going to prove to the Giants that at the very least he can be a backup. He's not starting next year. Don't get me wrong. They're drafting a quarterback. But I think that's what the Giants sort of want to find out here. I think with Drew Lock, they sort of know, all right, we got a guy who could be a backup quarterback. Drew Lock gets screwed. Like I said, he would have liked to have started to prove the teams that they could be more than a backup. But the Giants, they know he's not their star, so they don't care about that. They want to see if DeVito can be a backup quarterback. What do they have in this where they don't have to pay all that much money to a backup quarterback next year? I said, Lock, you just said it's getting $5 million. DeVito won't need that. Save some salary cap space there. I think they know, hey, it doesn't matter whether we win. We don't want to really win games now anyway. It's the dirty little secret, right? They would probably prefer to lose. But by the way, I think that's a problem, Craig, because I think DeVito, I just mentioned that schedule, Tampa, Dallas, New Orleans, Baltimore, Atlanta. He's going to win some games, all right? I don't think my Thanksgiving meals – actually, I probably want the Cowboys to lose too, but I don't know if Dallas beats the Giants on Thanksgiving. All right, I don't know that at all here, the way the Cowboys are playing. You tell me he can't beat New Orleans at home the week after? I think he could. He might actually cost the Giants a draft pick or two, just like he did last year. They could have had Jaden Daniels if he didn't play so well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that they would have taken him, but I agree. Like, they took Neighbors. Who knows what they really wanted in. All right, so projections the rest of the season. Let's just run through some of these players. Wan'Dale Robinson, good for 4 catches, 30 yards or so each game. He has 2 touchdowns, not horrible. Tyrone Tracy is now taken over pretty much at running back for Devin Singletary, although Singletary, it's funny, Tracy was the thorn in Singletary's side. Now Singletary is the thorn in Tracy's side, but it does feel like Tracy is probably, along with Neighbors, the best fantasy option. What's really interesting, George, is that some players are touchdown dependent. For Tracy, it is long touchdown dependent. It feels like he does nothing for like 3 quarters, then all of a sudden he like runs for a 50-yard touchdown. That's like been his whole season.
It does seem that way with Tracy. Either way, you're still starting him. Like I said, we know, we'll go over it again. There's 6 teams on bye here, so you have no Breece Hall. You don't have any J. James Cook is out here. No Alvin Kamara, he's out. I mean, you go over and over and over again with guys aren't playing this week. So, yeah, he's starting for you this week. One thing we haven't brought up, we should have brought up, by the way, Malik Neighbors was a late addition to the injury report yesterday with a groin. All right, and as somebody who has Neighbors on a couple of teams, I couldn't be more annoyed right now because this is a bye week. There's no one else out there to grab. Really need you to play, Mr. Neighbors, okay? And play well. All right, really need this. Come on. Be a good guy here. I won't make fun of the Giants for a day or two. Really need you to play. But just keep in mind there, the late edition injury report, always scary on a Friday.
All right. And then finally, another option, Theo Johnson, their tight end, 32 targets, 21 receptions, 238 yards, 1 touchdown. Theo Huxtable, probably a better play for me than Theo Johnson. So I'm going to say no there. George, before we wrap this up, you are the Hall of Fame aficionado, meaning I'm serious here. Why is Sam laughing? George, it's very hard to get George to admit that a player is a Hall of Famer. Like, the guy has to be Hank Aaron or Tom Brady. Eli Manning is on the list.
No!
Will you let me
he
finish?
is not a Hall of Famer.
George, we still have a minute and a half to kill. Stop. Let me finish. Eli Manning is up for first ballot Hall of Famer. There are many out there that think that he is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Postseason success, off the charts, regular season success. I mean, they were much better with him than without him. George, is he going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer? And if your answer is no, is he going to be a Hall of Famer at all?
I'll go with you. You asked a different question here. Is he going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer? I'm going to say no, that he won't be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't know if there's a big I don't know. Actually, I don't know how you feel about this. Is there a difference? Isn't Hall of Fame? Either you are or you aren't, whether you're first ballot or not. So I wonder about that. Is he going to be a Hall of Famer? Yeah, he's going to get in. I have very little doubt. Do I think he's a Hall of Fame? If there are 50 quarterbacks in the Hall of Fame, including Eli, he's going to be like the 49th one taken by people. There'll be 40. He wasn't a very good quarterback, but he had big moments. He had big moments in Super Bowls. He came through when it mattered.
You're so hard on everyone, man. Really difficult.
sharpest football contest show in the land. The Las Vegas Football Contest Show focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
My grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Fortunately, I missed you pinching your own cheek as I was looking down and did not know we were getting.
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you goes here on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the two big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today. Time to play our little game of start or sit this upcoming week in fantasy football. Obviously, if you have some other options, hit us up on Twitter/X, whatever you want to call it, at SportsGrid, at SportsGrid TV, and let us know. Let's start off with the quarterback position. Boy, the reclamation project of Anthony Richardson is in part 6, it feels like here. Starting again, played well against the Jets last week. You can't really look at these numbers because they're not good overall for the season, but he did look good, George, against the Jets last week. Indianapolis Colts this week up against the Detroit Lions. Oh my gosh. Is this the guy you want coming back from behind 31-10? Is that what's going to be? I don't want to get in front of the Lions at all, man. They're just killing people.
Well, that could be a good thing. He's going to have to throw the ball all day. Right? He's going to have to throw the ball all day. We go through it again. He got no Carr, no Allen, no Burrow, no Cousins. I think you have to start him. I mean, maybe you're deep at quarterback and you don't, but I mean, we're talking a 12-team league, he's going to be top 16. So therefore he goes, right? Because we got 4 quarterbacks who are out. So yeah, listen, you said it twice. He started against the Jets last week. I'm going to take that with a grain of salt. I am. Jets were terrible. All right. But that being said, maybe benching him, sitting him out, maybe that worked. Maybe it worked. Woke him up a little bit. They should get crushed, but I don't think they're going to get 52-10 by Detroit. The game's in Indianapolis. I think they'll play better. And like I said, he'll put the ball up. He'll do some running here. I think he gives you a solid fantasy day. So, yes, I am starting him this week.
All right, fair enough. Now, the next player, boy, what a game I had going into Monday Night Football. My game was tied, even up at like 120-something apiece. I had Fairbairn, the kicker of Houston. He had Rico Dowdle. I thought, oh my gosh, I have no chance whatsoever to win this. George, there's no way I'm ever playing Rico Dowdle. I was happy with the way that he played. He didn't play well. George, he does not look good at all. This guy is not a starting running back in the NFL. I understand the quarterback's not great either, and they have major offensive line issues. But Dallas does not have a running back. This is probably the only team in the NFL that I'm clear to say, I understand this guy has a pulse. Even in a 2 running back league that you have to play somebody, I just don't know that I'm going to do it, man. I was not impressed at all. Maybe I missed something.
Dallas has running back problems? Boy, Craig, I wish somebody would have pointed this out at some point this year. at any point this year. All right, come on. I mean, yeah, Dowdle's a backup running back. We know that's why everybody's been going off on Jerry Jones all off season long. Why didn't Jerry Jones sign Saquon Barkley? Why didn't Jerry Jones sign Derrick Henry? Because, oh, I'm sorry, he brought in Zeke Elliott. My bad. All right, so you said it also. I don't think Zach Martin plays this week for the Cowboys. He's missed practice or been limited all week. So I think this could be a problem with Dallas. No. As bad at running back is, and listen, maybe you have no choice. But what is your upside with Dowdle? You're praying for him to get to the end zone. You probably need him to break something. Where Washington just screws up, he breaks one into the secondary, and good luck with that. And Dallas, yeah, they're probably trailing again. Guess what? They're going to have to throw the football much more than run it here. Now, he's a sit.
Yeah. All right. So now let's move on to Aaron Jones of the Minnesota Vikings. I had nothing else to add. Sorry. What's interesting is, boy, was I wrong. Cam Akers is actually like a pretty decent part of this offense, George. But Aaron Jones is a must play. Do we need to spend more than 10 seconds on this guy? I mean, he's got to start for you. You're not going to have better options than this.
Yeah. If you got better options than Jones, God bless you. All right. You're doing well. He's a start for me. Akers, probably not this week because they're playing Chicago. That's a tough defense there.
He's playing a lot.
He is a flex option. Listen, if you're crushed, once again, 6 teams on bye. If you're crushed, I'm not yelling at you for starting Akers. I'm not. I think Minnesota wins the game, scores some touchdowns here. Maybe you get lucky and he gets one. So I can see that.
All right, Deebo Samuel. This has been a tough one for me. I just keep playing him all year, waiting for something to happen. Look, Deebo 2 years ago was, I think, the MVP of fantasy football based on where he was drafted and the results, and then a little step back last year. The 49ers just not playing well, but like here's a scenario that I could play out for you, George. Would you start, because I have this option, would you start Jameson Williams over Deebo Samuel? Like that would be my option.
Right now, yeah, I would. It's sad. I don't think it's close to me. We do expect Detroit to score a whole bunch of touchdowns. One could be a big one to Jameson. That's all you need, the one big one. All right. And the kicker might be, remember, Brock Purdy, he's got the shoulder injury. And I don't think the Niners know if he's going to play. And if he don't play, by the way, that's what is it, Brandon Allen quarterbacking? Yeah, you want no part of anybody on San Fran other than maybe Christian McCaffrey in that case here. So that's another situation to keep an eye on. But yeah, I would start Jameson Williams. I don't even think it would be a second thought. Even if I knew Purdy was going to play, I think I would still start Jameson Williams over Deebo. I think I would. I think he's going to get that big one again.
All right, hope so, George. The big one. Jaden Reed of the Green Bay Packers this week is another coin flip Packer wide receiver game. In a really fun game, by the way, I think, coming up this week. But I can't predict which Packers wide receiver week to week is going to do anything. So it's a start and a sit for me. It's a coin flip. You got a coin, flip it.
I agree. I said it early in the show. Lawson, Reed, Wicks, Dobbs. You just don't know which one week in, week out is going to be that guy. It's frustrating. I'm looking to see. I want to see what the weather is in Green Bay. Chance of rain. It's like about 43 degrees at game time there. You always worry about that in Green Bay. We'll live with that. You probably have to, because once again, 6 teams on bye here. And Reed is probably the guy I want first out of that group I just mentioned here. So I'm going to say you probably have to start him, but I wouldn't be thrilled about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. All right, Tank Dell real quick. Tank Dell basically playing the role of Stephon Diggs at this point. Didn't do a ton last week. Nico Collins, by the way, didn't do a ton either, but Houston ended up finding a way to win. Pretty dependent on a Jameson Williams type game, right, George? Like a 50-yard touchdown or so? Because other than that, what is Tank Dell doing? 4 catches, 30 yards, 4 yards.
We could have put C.J. Stroud on this list. I wouldn't want Stroud's not doing it for fantasy for a guy who's drafted top 5, top 6 quarterback overall here. Tank Dell, almost the same thing as I said with Reed here. You probably have to, but I wouldn't want to because you just said it. Unless he gets that big play, and they're not hitting him like Jameson Williams is, right? They're just not scoring those kind of points here. You're probably not going to be happy with your fantasy day. You may have to, but I'd rather not start Tank Dell.
All right, fair enough. Bold predictions up next. George Kurtz lays them all out there for you. Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, Brian Robinson, Mike Evans, Ladd McConkey. All those names and more next.
it's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards.
That was
Lincoln!
But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
When you look at Marcus Johnson, when you look at Nikola Jokic, these aren't guys that are big, super athletic, dunking and jumping over people. These are just guys that are clean, skilled footwork, and do things below the rim that make the everyday guy look like it'd be like, I can do that. But you can't, and neither can I.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to Fantasy Sports today here on SportsGrid. Always a fun 5 minutes for me to throw it to George Kurtz, and then he goes over some really bold predictions for the week. There's a lot of players George likes over on, it looks like, on a lot of these player props in particular. So let's find out and see this week who George is on, so to speak, in his bold predictions. George?
All right. So we're going to need our bold predictions this week, right? 6 teams on bye. Most of us are struggling here. So we need guys to put up, the guys who we are expecting to put up fantasy points, we need them to put up fantasy points. Because if your stars this week aren't putting up points, you're probably going to struggle. First guy who I have in multiple leagues here, he's had a pretty good fantasy season as it is for a quarterback. He's in a top 10. If you're a Matthew Berry fan, this is his ride or die. Kyler Murray of the Arizona Cardinals here. They're playing Seattle. I think Murray's going to put up a top 3 week for a quarterback, and maybe even not number 1 here. Once again, no Joe Burrow, no Josh Allen. Good week to make this prediction, right? Seattle, not the greatest of defenses here. I think Murray, he can use his legs. He can go through the air here. Arizona can win this game. They can give themselves some breathing room, right? They get a game over Seattle. San Fran has a tough game versus Green Bay. The Rams have a tough game versus later that night versus the Philadelphia Eagles. So a really important game for Kyler Murray to put up those points. I think he gets it done here. Maybe 2 to 3 touchdowns between his arm and his legs here. 50 yards on the ground here. I'm expecting a big game from Kyler Murray. Next guy on the list actually doesn't play Sunday. He plays Monday night in the Harbaugh Bowl here. And we saw his coach say, oh, he's one of the greatest quarterbacks ever right now. Okay, that's not true. All right, but Justin Herbert has had a better year than we expected, and it should only get better between now and the rest of the season. You know, I could have added to this bold prediction and told you, I think Herbert from this point on is a top 8 fantasy quarterback. I think he's going to have that kind of week. I mean, listen, we're picking against the Baltimore secondary. They have a gift that keeps on giving. Everybody puts up points against them. All right, so I think Herbert's going to be able to pick them apart here without really much of a problem. I said, I really like the way Herbert's been playing. I think he is one of the best quarterbacks in today's game. If he played on the offense with, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, he would be putting up those kinds of points. We don't talk about him as much maybe with Los Angeles because what did Harbaugh tell us? That they want to take the air out of the ball, shorten games and run the ball a whole lot. Well, they did that in the beginning, but I think now Harbaugh's realizing what he has in Herbert, and he's putting the ball up in the air here. My next one, all right, it hurts a little bit, but everyone is beating up on my Dallas Cowboys, right? I mean, everybody. They're another gift that keeps on giving here. Brian Robinson, of the Washington Commanders. He's been a guy who he scores touchdowns against everybody anyway, right? He may not always get a lot of yardage, but he scores touchdowns against everybody anyway. I think he goes off on Dallas. You saw what Joe Mixon did to the Cowboys Monday night. All right. And I'm not saying Robinson's better than Mixon or the same, but I'm saying you can run on Dallas. Washington's probably scoring 28 points, at least 4 touchdowns in this game. 5 wouldn't shock me. I think Robinson gets at least 2 of them, and I think he gets yardage as well. I think it's at least 80 yards this game, maybe even eclipses the century mark here. So big game coming for Robinson. I think he's a must start this week. You don't want to forget about him because he's coming back from the injury. He's been, like I say, he scores the touchdown, but maybe he doesn't get the usage you want. I think he gets all of that this weekend. Rivalry game. Dan Quinn, the head coach, he wants to show up the Cowboys here. So big game for Brian Robinson. Mike Evans, I'm a little leery of this one. Since I said this one, Evans is more questionable than absolutely going to start here. But that being said, Tampa Bay, they're going to want to get him the ball. They're going to want to get him in the end zone. They also will still get him continue that streak of over 1,000 yards, which is a possibility. Once we still have 6-7 games left here, so I think it is a possibility. I think Evans has a nice, serviceable game against the Giants in this one. I'm still going to stick with my 80 yards in the score here, but like I said, I'm a little bit more leery of this one than I was when I set this in due to they listed him as questionable. Although the coach said if he's healthy and whatever, he's going to go, and I do expect him to go. Lad McConkey, I'm just following up here with Justin Herbert. If Justin Herbert's going to have a huge game, someone's got to catch the football. And McConkey, he is not a slot guy. Oh, the guy's going to run 5-yard pass. This guy is a true number 1 wide receiver, or will be a number 1 wide receiver in the NFL. Herbert's looking for him. He's really good here. He's not the deep guy. All right, that's Quentin Johnson, but he is the intermediary guy. So I like Lad McConkey a lot. I think he's only going to get better as the season rolls along here. I think he's a wide receiver 1 this week. I think he has a big game like everybody else does against that Baltimore Ravens secondary.
Why are you whispering? He's only going to get better. We know. I mean, you could say it loud, George. You don't have to whisper. With people watching, there's no whispering on the show.
I'm not talking to you.
He's only going to get better.
Less of the show. I'm not talking to Craig anymore.
We know. Well, we have another hour to go. Here's what's coming up. Hour 2. George will have to stick around. We've got hold or drop, trade or fade, Week 12's fantasy preview, and then, of course, buy or sell. That's what's coming up next. More fantasy sports today coming your way. Also, don't forget, Thanksgiving Day coming up next week on Thursday. Want to wish everyone out there watching a very happy Thanksgiving. We'll be right back.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards.
That was
Lincoln!
But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
When you look at Marcus Johnson, when you look at Nikola Jokic, these aren't guys that are big, super athletic, dunking and jumping over people. These are just guys that are clean, skilled footwork, and do things below the rim to make the everyday guy look like it'd be like, I can do that. But you can't, and neither can I.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.